So welcome to the third part of this lecture. In this part, we will go through the method of cognitive walkthrough in more detail. So what is a cognitive walkthrough? A cognitive walkthrough is an inspection method for evaluating the design of a user interface with special attention to how well the interface supports exploratory learning. And this refers mainly to first-time use without any formal training. The evaluation is done by having a small group of evaluators who go step by step through commonly used tasks. It can be performed by evaluators in the early stages of design before performance testing is possible. The method of cognitive walkthrough takes into account the cognitive and affective processing of the user, and this is a particular strength for this method and something that usually the heuristic evaluation as an inspection method ignores, as the method stimulates users' problem-solving practices. The method was developed in the early 1990s by Wharton et al. And on this slide, you can see full reference to that first published study where you can find more information about the method. So how can you use the method? What are the stages? So you start by thinking of who are the users, what are their needs and expectations. In the cognitive walkthrough, you need to impersonate a potential user, and therefore the method usually requires the design of personas, which you share with the evaluators performing the cognitive walkthrough. You might have different user groups, so you might need to develop different personas to capture the needs and expectations of these different groups. In the second step, you need to define and consider your evaluation goals. Based on your goals, the system and end users, you could write a persona-based scenario which describes the needs of your potential user and what your user is trying to achieve. Of course, if you have, as I said, different user groups, you need to have more than one personas and therefore more than one persona-based scenarios capturing the tasks that these different user groups will be undertaking using the system. The scenario should provide a clear description of tasks the users are trying to achieve when using the system. Then you need to design your cognitive walkthrough questions. You will see in the next slide some common cognitive walkthrough questions, which were introduced by Wharton et al., who introduced the method, but you need to add more questions in order to meet your goals. Finally, you have to put yourselves in the shoes of the user by using the persona and try to accomplish the tasks as described by the persona-based scenarios. For each step of the task, you need to ask all the cognitive walkthrough questions and note down any potential problems. If you want, you can again use severity ratings, which can help you prioritize your results. So when the method was introduced, Wharton et al. Came up with these questions. The first one is, will the user try to achieve the right effects? The second one is, will the user notice that the correct action is available? Then, will the user associate the correct action with the effect he or she is trying to achieve? And finally, if the correct action is performed, will the user see that progress is being made towards solution of the task? As I said before, you need to extend these questions by including more questions, adding more questions that help you address the evaluation goals. If, for example, you're evaluating an application about some trust elements, you need to include some questions that will help you capture the trust aspect of the interface design. I also mentioned before that you can use severity ratings, and the same principles that we described in the previous part of the lecture for the heuristic evaluation severity ratings apply also here. You can use a scale. Again, scales commonly used are from 1 to 5. And for the severity rating of a usability problem, you need to consider a combination of the following 3 factors: the frequency with which the problem occurs, is it common or rare, the impact of the problem when it occurs, will it be easy or difficult for the users to overcome, and the persistence of the problem, is it a one-time problem that users can overcome once they know about it, or will users repeatedly be bothered by the same problem? So cognitive walkthrough also comes with advantages and disadvantages. On the plus side, it is an inexpensive method to apply. and give feedback to designers, obtain early feedback. It can be used to identify corrective measures to improve design. It can be used in combination with other methods such as heuristic evaluation. It is easy to train new expert evaluators to perform a cognitive walkthrough. Um, a very important advantage is that the majority of the issues that are captured with the method of cognitive walkthrough are usually major problems and very relevant to the particular context. On the downside, it requires a good understanding and experience on training before a cognitive walkthrough can be performed. Hiring trained usability experts can be expensive. More than one expert should be involved for reliable results. It can be more time consuming compared to the method of heuristic evaluation. And again, you don't get obvious fixes. You should get user feedback on how specific problems could be addressed in order to match the user requirements and needs. But of course, before a performance is used, the suggested fixes might be provided. Which are provided might address the specific user groups as those are captured by your personas.